Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I am thrilled to have my good friend Tad Edwards, who's the chairman, CEO, and president of Benjamin Edwards, along with Todd Brandstadt. I said that correctly, right, Todd?
Correct. Yep.
Who's director of branches for Benjamin Edwards. Thanks so much, guys, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
So I'm in Nantucket still, which is fun, and the weather's not as hot as it is where you guys are. So I feel sort of bad for you, but it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make out all right. I want to take advantage, Tad, of having you here and talk give everybody sort of a little sense of what your thinking is about, where the world is, and then talk a little bit about what Todd's doing and vision for Benjamin Edwards and stuff like that. But when you look at the industry today, I mean, you've obviously been at the point of the sword from A.G. Edwards now to Benjamin Edwards, creating a great new firm. But things have continued to change. In my opinion, they've sort of moved faster even in the last 3 years than they have in the last 5, which was faster than the last 70 altogether. So what are you seeing? What sort of trends that are sort of piquing your interest?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us, Tony. We appreciate it, and I love looking at the back of your house in Nantucket. It's pretty cool. I'm a little mixed on how much the industry's changed. I remember during COVID, after COVID sort of winded down, people said, "Well, the world's changed," and this is a little bit of hyperbole, but people aren't going to come into work anymore. It's all going to be remote, and no one's going to wear a sport coat ever again. And so what's happened is, not completely, but it's gone back to the way it was to a certain extent. And in our industry, you hear similar things that a lot of people are going independent. Well, they are, but at a firm like Edwards, people feel independent. We don't have bureaucracy. We don't have red tape. It's a freedom type culture. People feel entrepreneurial. They feel independent. And so it's at Edwards.
But even still with you guys, it's almost like it's, back to the future. Like you've got this, you retain these traditional values. I think the things guys admire and like about the business, but you have to admit that that's a change from what it was. I mean, because the industry was really headed down a one size fits all commoditized, world that the big wirehouses were owning everything. And, you're sort of buying, I would say you're in that group of advisors are voting with their feet for this ethos, right? All the things you just enumerated, this sort of independent feel of things, but you don't have to be an independent firm. You could be whatever you like and whatever flavor you have.
Right. Tony, we are finding a lot of people, they're reflected on their career. There's an inflection point in a lot of these advisors' lives where they're saying, do I want to stay where I am for the rest of my career, the rest of my life, and possibly look back and say, I should have evolved into something else. And at Edwards, we don't have any private equity money ownership. We don't have any bank ownership. We're into our 6th generation. And of all the firms I see out there, I don't know any, and maybe there are some, but I don't know any that are independent like we are, that don't have PE money, venture capital money, institutional money, or bank owned, that are still entrepreneurial, but still have the history of 130 plus years. And we don't want to be bought out. We can't be bought out. And the advisors that join us, they can have equity ownership. They can own part of this firm, and they can make that transition in their life from being an employee of a firm to being an equity owner in a firm, and walk around and say, I own part of this place.
Yeah,
and then their daughter or son can own part of the place.
Yeah,
and next generation.
Well, that's key. Not only because you went through the trials and tribulations of moving from A.G. Edwards, which I know you guys loved, family business, and then starting this, but you do see that difference, Todd. When just sort of pushing on what Tad had said, you see out in the marketplace, and you're there every day talking to people, but there seems to be a growing distinction between What does it mean to be independent, especially if you're maybe owned by private equity or you're owned by sort of a firm that's with putting a lot of pressure on the owners, to sell. And then you get a firm, you have equity, but sometimes advisors don't ask the right questions to figure out what is that equity. It seems pretty straightforward with Tad, but if you're going to another firm, I think that there could be confusion out there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Tony, thanks again for having Ted and I. I'll answer in a few different ways. I still, just a background on me, I still have a book of business. I still advise clients. So looking at it from the advisor's perspective, and I think that's really, really important. Um, the industry is changing and it's evolving. And if from an advisor, you want to have your brand,
Yeah.
and your clients recognize that, and you want to have the belief that you own your business, and and that's evolving very, very quickly as the industry is going along. From Edward's perspective, we offer that. I mean, with a laser focus from the home office. From any, everyone at the home office is laser focused on supporting that relationship. And so there isn't a feeling that you have to be independent because as an advisor, you own your practice, and the support is there, which is laser focused. The leadership is very, very steady here, and I think that's another really important piece
Well,
from.
that's also to do with the ownership structure too, right? I mean, that's gonna, as Tad was saying, it's you know what it is the day you get there, you know what it is the day you retire, right? Tad's
Yeah.
not selling it.
Yeah, and in an industry where there is kind of an undercurrent of change occurring all the time, um, to have that stability at the leadership level, and that leadership is maniacally focused on support of you and your practice, and nurturing that relationship with the clients is I think there's not another place in the industry currently that is that focused, and that's a settling point that we're hearing from advisors that are exploring around. There's a real appetite for that.
Tad, a little bit when I think about like the equity situation, with the parable that comes to my mind is the cobbler's kids have no shoes. These advisors that would normally, if it was their clients, they'd be asking all kinds of questions. Well, explain to me this equity. What is that? What does it mean? How does it
Yeah.
work? What happens if somebody makes another investment? Well, when do you have to pay it back? What is that? They're not asking the same questions. I think some of these are investments these guys wouldn't make for their clients, yet they're joining these firms with a promise of maybe one day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I, I agree. I also think just hearing these questions that the person that seems to be left out of the conversation so often is the client.
Yeah, okay.
And down the road, if somebody is owned by a PE firm, we all know the PE firms at some point want to monetize, and it's 5 years or 7 years or 6 years or whatever. And you wonder what happens to the client then. Does the advisor need to call the client and say, hey, now we have another name? The client may think that's okay. They may not think it's okay. And so I feel like in a place like Edwards, we're here forever. We're in our sixth generation. If people want to own our stock, it's up to them. Most people do. And one other thing that we really believe in here, Tony, I know you've been here and you know that, but we have a lot of fun here. And Todd mentioned something I thought that was important too about we own our clients. The advisor owns the clients. And here's an example. Our turnover rate is less than 2% at our firm. But we had a guy out west that for a lot of reasons he had to leave us. And I remember talking with him and I said, look, when you joined us, we gave you our word that your clients are your clients. And no one's going to call your clients. We let him transfer all of them. Now, what happened is in about 2 years, he called and said, I made a mistake. Could I come back? But my point is that people, not everywhere you go are your clients your clients. You don't necessarily own them. And often you end up competing for them, and your clients are your you're handcuffed with your clients in a lot
Yeah.
of places, not with us.
It's in my mind, Ted, that's a good explanation of what one of the shared values of independence is. So I think there's a advisors are voting with their feet for the ethos, not necessarily even the shape of the firm. It doesn't have to be an RIA, it doesn't have to be this. It just has to have these values. And I think that the PE structures, to your point, that are coming, you don't know what's going to happen next. That's a threat and a challenge to those values. You may think, oh, I'm joining that at the right time. But this idea of permanence, Todd, right, really should help you give you comfort and your clients comfort, to Tad's point.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ted's point of the client is front and center. I mean, human nature, uh, people just don't like change,
Yeah.
regardless. And so, you know, looking forward, I've been here 11 years, and I started with Edward. So I've been in the industry for 30 years, and that has not changed, right? Clients do not like change. So knowing that advisors here own their practice, they are being supported um, more than 100% on a daily basis to grow, to nurture that relationship, and that you can believe that your brand is your brand, and there's not going to be change at the leadership level. Um, it's a pretty good path to be on, and we're in the early innings. To that point, as an advisor, to be on the ground floor and get some private stock with a firm structured this way, to me, we talk about it every day with advisors out in, that we're having discussions with. Right.
It's not just the stock, Ted. I know for a fact, again, as you mentioned, I've been there. It is a lot of fun, and we had fun when we were out there. But the your board members, I mean, half or more, some at least half, I think, are financial advisors with the firm. Is that still the case?
Yes, and yeah, Tony, that's all by design, and we believe whenever we meet together as a board, we meet quarterly. We have other meetings here and there, but if half the people in the room are from the branch system, they're either an advisor or has been an advisor, and they're in a top leadership role. We want them in the room. So when
Mhm.
we discuss products, services, new technologies, the future, we don't just want home office people there. We want people from the branch system, and our advisors and our assistants, client assistants, they have a voice here.
Yeah.
And our client assistants, every 6 months, we have a group of about 50 of them come into St. Louis for training, and then they come to my house for dinner. We have a murder mystery program. We do whatever. We have dinner together, indoor, outdoor. It's a lot of fun. And we give our assistants and our advisors a platform where they don't just have a voice, but we ask them, what do you think about this? What, what are your ideas?
Yeah.
And they help us make decisions on the future of Edwards.
Well, what better way to build culture? And as a practical matter, the assistants are the sharpest end of the spear. They're handling the challenges and the problems, if you especially if you empower them to do it, right? So if they feel like they have a voice in it, they're really gonna, make that happen.
Yes.
It's very good. Um, Todd, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about um, what you see. We talked a little bit about keeping working with the assistants. That's got to be able to build a great culture. What do you see when you look at the culture of the firm, and how you try to explain it to advisors who may be taking a look at Benjamin Edwards?
Well, the culture we have to you have to experience. I think a lot of firms in the industry feel they have a distinct culture, uh, piece to have out there. From in terms of recruiting folks, an effort, an absolute, what we love to have is to have advisors visit our home office. And here we are, not even midway through the year, and we've had more home office visits than we had all of last calendar year for advisors coming in. And we think that's really, really important. I think once an advisor, um, just like the brokerage board meetings where we want the field in, and a lot of value happens in that camaraderie and the assistants coming in to visit the home office to really see the support that advisors are going to receive once they're here is critical. And the word I use is personal. You know, we take it personally, right? Everyone at the firm takes it personally to do right by you, to take care of your clients, whatever the need is. It goes beyond we're gonna get the job done for you. They take it personally. And you have to feel that, you know, you have to feel that. And once you come to the home office, we feel that we're well on the way to one, them feeling that they can take care of their clients going forward and grow their business. That's what we want as well, and that's what they want. So to us, it's that word. It's personally, we all
Yeah.
take it very seriously that way.
I think Tad, that taking it personally comes from the structure that you have, right? The ownership structure.
Yeah,
If you feel like an owner, you're going to take it personally.
I do too. And Tony, to me, that really piggybacks on what you and Todd just said, is that, you know, an advisor doesn't want to look in the mirror in 5 years or whatever and say, I didn't capture this opportunity. And advisors can call their clients and say something like this: I have an opportunity to join Edwards, kind of like Walt Disney, people call it Disney. I have an
Yeah.
opportunity to be part of Edwards. 138 years, 6 generations, and I've been invited to be an owner of the company. That's a huge statement. And we've never heard of any client since that has said that they're not comfortable with that. They like that. And usually they say, well, sign me up. And you know, transitions are often used as smokescreens why somebody won't move. And it's so much easier today with DocuSign, and we have
Yeah.
an incredible transition team. But I think when you look back, people are going to say they had an opportunity to join a place like Edwards with over 100 years of history, a place that is going to be independent. You control your destiny, and you could have more fun in your life than you ever dreamed. And that's a big thing.
It is a big thing. Life's important. Hey, Todd, the only when people have a knock about whether it's an independent firm or Benjamin Edwards, right? The thought would be, or at least what they're being told at the larger firm is, well, you can't go there because the technology is terrible, and you're gonna have this diminution in products and diminution in services. It's not as sophisticated. What do you say to that when you talk about your platform, or are advisors pleasantly surprised when they check out what you actually do have to offer?
No, it's a good question, Tony. We do get that question quite a bit, and because I think the perception is we're newer, we're in the early innings of growth, that maybe we don't have the resources to support advisors from the technology perspective. The design that Tad had in mind early on was to, let the specialists be in the lane that they own, and so we partnered with incredible firms for that. You think of like an iceberg where you see above the water you see a certain amount of ice, and then below it's 10x or whatever the number is. To us, that's how we view our partners. I mean, they are committed to us. We're committed to them. We have a great dialogue. They listen to us. And oh, by the way, we're getting the feedback from the advisors in the field and the assistants in the field to have dialogue about where we can go better with the technology. So those partnerships are really, really key. And again, the amount of dollars to be in that space, it's an arms race. I think a couple of folks at our home office that lead those departments would say it's a big race to be in, and an expensive race. And if we can have those and forge those good relationships, let them be the specialist in the lane that they own, and then we just communicate regularly with them.
Yeah. And also, things are, I don't know if you remember this, Tad. I was told when I was at, well, I won't say the firm, but I was constantly told that the phone on my desk was a Watts line, and it was $10,000. It kept me, and I really ran my P&L, trying to look at every little dollar where it was going. It was $10,000 for that phone. Like, it was beating in my head. And when I started my own firm, I got the phone for free with the internet, right?
Exactly.
The world's changed, and there's something about being nimble, right? And being able to make decisions, and spend money where you got to spend it.
Well, Tony, speaking of phones, that's something else I think that has a lot to do with our culture. I answer my own phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's my phone right here. We answer our own phones here. We don't have a lot of layers, and when people call, I don't try to be protected. You know, I talk with our advisors every day, and I want them to know that they're important, they're special, they're recognized, and that's one reason we have a lot of fun here is that there's ongoing relationships. We have trips. We've got a whole group of people on a symposium coming in today, probably 50, 60 advisors coming in. We're all having dinner together. We are constantly on the move with activities to help our advisors build their practice the way they want to do it, but we offer all the tools and all the expertise, and it's a great partnership.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to leave it at that because that's I'm like Jerry Lewis. Let's end on a high note. That's a good that's a good space to end. Look, we'll continue these conversations. You know, we'll have another podcast as usual. But it's great to see you guys. Thank you for being here, and good luck.
Thanks,
Thanks
Mark.
all. Thanks,
Thank you,
Tony.
Tony.
Bye.